Following the murder of George Floyd, this last year has established the intersection at 38th and Chicago as a critical and known location of racial justice and healing, perhaps 100 years in the making. It's established a location to honor the legacy of George Floyd. Council Vice President Andrea Jenkins, Council Member Cano, this team standing behind me and myself have worked now for a number of months with a number of different community partners towards a phased reconnection of this intersection. And today, thanks to some really amazing leadership from Agape, with the strength and resilience of community members, of business partners along that corridor, we have now begun the phased reconnection of 38th and Chicago at George Floyd Square. So let me be clear, though, 38th and Chicago is not and will not go back to where it was prior to May 25th, 2020. This intersection will forever be changed, and we need to be investing in that transformation. We need to be investing directly in racial justice and healing, everything from Black-owned business to Black-owned property on that corridor, facade improvements, creativity directly from our Black community, art, and of course the memorial itself. We will be putting our money where our mouth is. We will be investing to do that necessary transformation that is hundreds and hundreds of years overdue. The foundations of community healing, of celebration, and of gathering that has been created in beautiful fashion at 38th and Chicago over this last year must continue. This can be a critical location of gathering, not just for our city, but the entire world. And through a phased reconnection, we can also find a way to provide the necessary social services and city service that has been missing at times over this last year. We can make sure that patrons are able to visit their local business and have full access. Our businesses, our residents, all of us, we're going to continue welcoming people to this location. But in order to do that, in order to create this space that is accessible to all, yes, moving towards this phased reconnection was a critical step. Community leaders like Agape, like Steve Floyd, like PJ Hill, like Dwight and Ivy from Smoke in the Pit. In many cases, they've been here as businesses and as residents for more than 20 years. They're deeply committed to this corridor. They're deeply committed to this city. And it's really been an honor to be partnering with them. This has been a community-led effort every step of the way. And their leadership, I think, has inspired all of us to be better. And with that, I will turn it over to Council Vice President Andrea Jenkins, a council member of the area, and has been a leader throughout this process. Council Vice President.
Thank you, Mayor Frey. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Andrea Jenkins. I'm the Ward 8 City Council member, Vice President of the Minneapolis City Council. And, I woke up this morning to a number of text messages, calls from the media, emails, etc., letting me know that the intersection at 38th and Chicago is in the process of reconnecting our communities. The barricades were being taken down, the barriers were being removed, and the community, led by Agape and so many other community leaders, initiated this process. And I know over the last year, maybe more than anybody, that there have been a number of opposing viewpoints on what should happen at George Floyd Square. I have personally asked people. We have developed surveys to send around to folks. I've hosted virtual dialogues and conversations with people in the square, outside of the square, from around the whole city, to talk about what is the future of George Floyd Square. And in my estimation, the majority of people have said we need to begin the healing process. And the healing begins with the reconnection of the intersection of 38th and Chicago to the broader city. And so, you know, I've talked to business owners, I've talked to residents, I've talked to the people who are inside the square who are struggling on a daily basis with loss of revenue, loss of sleep, loss of liberty. People feel like they are being trapped in their homes, et cetera. And, you know, we're at a year now, and we've had this unprecedented conviction of an officer that murdered a member of our community. And now it's time for us to begin the process of rebuilding this community, to create the kind of memorial that is worthy of the life of George Floyd and so many other people who have lost their lives to the hands of the state. A center for racial healing, a center for social justice, a center for reckoning with the deep and systemic challenges that we face in this country and certainly in this city. While I was fielding a lot of those calls and emails this morning, I was in a truth and reconciliation meeting at the same time and talking to community leaders who have come together to lend their expertise, their energy, their talents to trying to figure out how the city can be more responsive to the harms that have been caused by this city and past leaders of this city, as well as the harms that are continually caused today. And we are taking steps and working hard and diligently to overcome those issues. But it's not going to happen overnight. And it's not going to happen with just the city. It's got to be all of us coming together as a community to deal with these issues. And that's what we witnessed this morning, the community stepping forward and saying, now it is time for us to move forward together to rebuild the kind of community that we want to see. And so we have a responsibility to preserve 38th Street as an African-American historical corridor. To that end, in 2018, I developed, along with 60 plus other community members, 5 different neighborhood organizations, we created the 38th Street Thrive Plan. The 38th Street Thrive Plan is a small area plan that seeks to bring affordable housing to this community, to this corridor, to bring new development, entrepreneurial support, to create job opportunities for young people, to build a green future for this community. And so that's the work that we all need to continue to do. I recognize that 38th and Chicago has forever been changed by the murder of George Floyd, and subsequently will require its own process to determine what that memorial should be like. I've had lots of questions. What is the city's plan for a memorial? The city's plan is to work with the community to develop an appropriate memorial for that space. It will happen. That is my guarantee as a resident, a 23-year resident of the Bryant neighborhood, 2 blocks away from George Floyd Square. And I'm making that commitment today. I made that commitment in 2018 when I swore to the city that I would uphold the values of this city and work towards equity and justice, and that's what we will continue to do. And so I will now turn it back over to the mayor, but want to just reiterate, this intersection, 38th and Chicago, what I have been for 20 years calling the soul of this city, now has become the soul of the nation, and that will forever be true, and it will be marked with the appropriate memorials as an infrastructure to support that. Thank you very much. Ms. Frey.
Thank you so much, Council Vice President, for your strength and commitment. Next, we have Councilmember Alondra Cano, who is also a bordering council member of the intersection at 38th in Chicago and has done some extraordinary work over this last year in partnership. Councilmember Cano.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for pulling us together today, and I'm really pleased to be here in partnership with Council Vice President Jenkins and with our community-based partners, our community-based leaders, and many of our city staff members who have been working together over the last year to figure out how to hold space in this community, how to not lose sight of the racial equity outcomes that we must achieve, and how to promote the healing and the truth and reconciliation that our community desperately needs. I want to just take a moment to share that for me, this moment in time that we're in is part of a much, much bigger conversation about transforming our city, our state, and our country. And long before this time in last year's history, many of us had been working on police reform issues, police accountability issues, and on making sure that we were able to hold harm doers accountable. I recognize that the road is still very much ahead of us, and I want to support us in continuing that path. The world didn't start and end here at 38th in Chicago. We are part of a struggle that's international in size to really reshape and rethink our public safety systems and how we treasure and uphold communities of color to help our systems and our cities and our neighborhoods to thrive and be those loving places that we know they can be. So we have spent a year or so, perhaps more, listening, learning, hearing each other out, building partnerships, engaging with community, identifying the groups that have that trust and that expertise that our city needs. And I'm really proud of that partnership because it's taken a long time, many conversations, many different responses to crises on the streets and in our neighborhoods when people have felt unsafe and when they have wanted more support and when they have wanted more presence and more leadership from our African American community. And that's what I feel like we are able to do here today in collaboration with many of our community partners, with many of the other community-based groups that we have established these partnerships with, and also the city has invested a lot of money to help really bring to fruition that vision that we all know can be tangible and real. And I wanted to take a brief moment to highlight the fact that we at the city will be releasing an RFP for artists and community healers to help us drive recovery efforts in areas that were impacted not only by the pandemic, but also by the painful loss of Mr. Floyd. So please know that we are doubling down on those investments. We've put millions of dollars on the table to help us reach the 38th Thrive vision, to help ensure that we're centering the voices of those BIPOC organizations and partners to help us achieve those goals. And so I know that today feels significant. We have a lot more work to do. And we're here today. We've been here for the past year. We've been here for the years before that. And I want to say that we are committed to staying in partnership to make sure that our community can heal and reach those goals that we've all been deeply, deeply working hard for. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to hearing from our partners today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Cano. And yes, this phased reconnection really must jumpstart our work even further. And with that, I'd like to invite up Steve Floyd and Bridget Stewart from Agape. I really want to hold up their leadership. It has been incredible. They came to us to partner. They came to us with a vision for community. And they came to us with a vision for how we move forward with a phased reconnection with community at the forefront.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Floyd with Change Inc. and the co-founder of Agape Movement and chief advisor of Agape Movement. What I'd like to say, first I want to say what Agape is. And agape is a Greek word for unconditional love, love in action. And that's one of the things that for the last 40 years we have been taking up on in Minneapolis, to produce that type of unconditional love as far as working with everybody and having things inclusive. As Agape came together from a lot of young men, one of our mottos is transforming street energy into community energy. And our second motto is putting the neighbor back in the hood. So when George Floyd was murdered, one of the things that happened amongst a lot of those young men around there who caused antisocial behaviors and things like that, they switched in their life and decided that as black men, they wanted to do something positive in the neighborhood. Our motto is transforming street energy into community energy. That's a hard thing to do. So it was a lot of battling back and forth with the young men that was up there that we was trying to bring in and start dealing with them in different kind of ways. As we have trainings that we have prepared for these guys to go through, whether it's mental health training, whether it's de-escalation training, verbal judo training, all of that training is about how to approach people that within the community, because that's what we are always about, is the community. And at that point, I want to say, too, we have a number of programs. We have our Streets program, striving to reach educational excellence through sports, which provide, the Twins just donated $3,000 worth of baseball equipment to work with 8 to 12-year-olds. We also do basketball. We have BAM that's ran by Marquise Bowie, which is a mentoring program that's going to be dealing with the juvenile justice systems. And we're developing black men to be able to go in and be a part of young men who are being incarcerated and being mentors for those guys. We have our Rites of Passage program, which is a Rites of Passage pilgrimage, but each year we take 15 African-American men to Africa, and we take them to 2 countries just so they can get to understand and know who they are, and as well as getting an African name. You know, we have our personal construction work run by Alfonso Williams, who does construction to hire young people, and then we're doing a job creation program through that. So there's a lot of things that we do that people really don't know about, but because of these men step forward. And in stepping forward, we approach the mayor as well as the chief of police and the Office of Violent Prevention, who has been great help as far as community stepping forward and we being a part of opening up that square. Our reasons for opening up that square was that during the timeline, not only from the murder all the way to the conviction and then on to the celebration, we thought a natural, which we believe, a natural ability was happening to opening up this square. And it got intensified when our babies started getting killed, that we had to now switch to something else and take it to the other side of Black Lives Matter, which means that we have to approach black people and say, hey, Black Lives Matter to us as well, so we can stop a lot of this shooting that's going on. We knew we was going to get pushback. We expected that. But at the same time, what we were doing was not eliminating what those women, Marsha and Janelle and Kia and Maggie, what they were doing and had been doing for a year up there. We think that is courageous. We think it was very noble of them. But now we have to go through a transition to develop our neighborhood and give us an opportunity to build our neighborhood, which is with a new normal. And so we understood the feedback, we understand the emotions of what happened, but we still standing on the fact that we have to change our community, we have to develop our young men in that community. And I believe that the only way urban areas such as ours, like we have, which is a different personality, is going to take gang members, ex-gang members, and people to turn around and change that community, because it's easier for them to go back and destroy it again or impact it again. And I also got to mention, I got to help one of our coworkers who's not here, Reggie Ferguson, has been a huge part of us coming together and working together within that community. So we don't want to leave him out. But our main thing is that we're going to be there. We're going to continue to circulate the community. One of the things that Agape Movement did is that we did go around the community getting people's understanding. We went to all of the businesses, and every last one of them said that they would like to see, 90% said that they would like to see the square open, but they want it done safely and they want it done peacefully. And I think we pulled it off pretty much safe and peacefully today, thanks to the city workers, which we all coordinated together and talk about how we would impact that with Agape pretty much making the decision. So if anybody, want to say things about Agape, they can. But what I would like to make a correction is that Agape does not work for the police department. Not at all. Agape does not work for the mayor's office in the sense of being told to come out there and open up those squares. They were all in support of us stepping forward with this strategy that we would go in, and they was very well step back saying you all can do it and had faith in us doing it. And we feel that we did it. We did go around to everybody in that area who was in that area and tried to bring them to the table and say, hey, let's do this as a community. Let's do this together, because it didn't happen in Portland, it didn't happen in Seattle, it didn't happen in Ferguson. And we didn't want to have bulldozers or whatever was going to happen. And I know the city was always trying to make that space a very special place. But in visualizing it getting open so that we can start creating that is what we had to visualize and then take steps and forward to do it. So I would like to even thank the mayor's office and the chief, the Office of Violent Prevention, and the city workers who did a great job as far as listening to the community and what is it that we wanted to do, and let us do our job and do what we wanted to do. We didn't come asking for money. We approached the mayor and the mayor's office and say, this is what we want to do as a community and as men. And all these men stand behind me, which are coming. So we want to be able to produce that on the south side of where we are, and it began to help what's going on the north side with the shootings and the killing of babies.
Steve, I have a feeling you'll probably stick around, you may answer. And we'll open it up to any questions you have.
I understand that the intersections were reopened this morning, but according to members of Agape, because of the pushback, they were closed back again. So if you go to it right now, it looks pretty much the way it's always looked like. And they told us earlier it would last for 3 months. Can you kind of clarify that? And which people say here, oh, it's been reopened. It's not really reopened.
So when we used the term phased reconnection, we did so very intentionally. We recognize that a full reconnection is not going to happen all at once. Due to the really extraordinary leadership of Agape, Mr. Steve Floyd and others that are here with us today, along with our public works crew, yes, we were able to remove the Jersey barriers that have now been there for almost a year. We were able to remove a bunch of the debris and some of the trash that was located on the intersection and on the street to make sure that the area was clean. And we were able to certainly take next steps. Now, I acknowledge that it will be a bit touch and go and difficult over the next several days. The good news is that we've got some extraordinary on-the-ground leadership in Agape that will be continuing to do some great work along those corridors to make sure that, yes, we can move towards that ultimately reconnection of these neighborhoods.
So when will the intersection, are you saying that it might reopen in the next few days? I mean, when will the traffic be able to go through those intersections again? Are we in a holding pattern for 3 months, as a member of Agape said earlier, or what's happening with George Floyd Square?
I didn't hear the previous comment that you made regarding the months, but yeah, do you want to address that?
I know we said that basically it was a 3-year phase. It was brought up as 3 months, that in the next 3 years, in 23, that they're going to come, and that's temporary, and put a permanent memorial out there. In 3 years, along with the plan.
So, yeah, there's a few different pieces here. First, we wanted to make sure that we retained every bit of art that's presently located at the intersection and make sure that it got the necessary and due care. We wanted to ensure that the fist statue remained and is intact and doesn't get hit by oncoming vehicular traffic. We wanted to ensure that the location where George Floyd was murdered never has tires run over it again. And yes, we do want to move towards the reconnection as well. As I mentioned, yes, that will take several days in that we recognize that there is still pain associated with this street and the intersection. And we want to be working with community hand in hand towards that reconnection itself. But we've heard loud and clear from residents in terms of the service that they are looking for. We've heard loud and clear from business owners like Smoke in the Pit, and that they want to see full access for their patrons. And so that's the direction that we're moving right now. And I think we've taken a significant step this morning, but that's not, it doesn't end here.
But in the next few days, you expect everything to reopen?
I won't give you an exact timeline, but we're moving towards a reconnection.
Mayor Frey, Ricardo Lopez here from the Men's Reformer. I had a question about, I noticed that there was a lack of police presence at the intersection today, and I understand that there were some nearby. But I'm curious about sort of this, it seems to be something of a vague timeline about when traffic will actually go through there again. And I've talked to some activists and caretakers who said they have no intention of leaving unless some demands are met. But I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about the city's position or view on any potential for clashes if the sort of response or the clearing away or anything that the city does next creates that type of environment.
As Council Vice President mentioned just a few minutes ago, I think what our entire city is looking for right now is a sense of peace and healing. We have some really important work that needs to take place, not just at that intersection, not just along the commercial corridor of 38th or Chicago, but throughout our entire city. And as you will see very shortly through investments that we're going to be making coming out of the Rescue Act, we're going to be putting our money where our mouth is. Again, whether that's black business ownership or real estate ownership, whether that's cultural districts and corridors, or making sure that we're investing in our creative class. This is work that needs to move forward, and yes, we are going to move in that direction. Part of that is making sure that we are working in conjunction with community. And as Mr. Floyd mentioned just a couple minutes ago, they came to us with a plan and a vision. The chief and I discussed it along with our health department, Office of Violence Prevention, to be able to move forward. Did we think that we would get the whole thing taken care of this morning? No, we did not. We certainly have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of trust to rebuild as well, and we intend to do so.
Is it an overarching goal to prevent any clashes between what's the square and the reason what's the plan and the ignorance and
I'll let Mr. Floyd speak for himself here, but I think avoiding clashes between those activists that were at George Floyd Square and the police was of paramount concern. We wanted to prevent that, and that's why you didn't see a police presence this morning. That's why you saw leadership coming directly from community. And that's something that, again, we intend to continue in the days ahead. Now, of course, there will be a presence of officers because they'll be, patrolling just like any other neighborhood of the city. That is a component, of course, but we want to uplift and hold community at the center and focus.
Mayor, Paul Bloom over here, Fox 9. A quick question just about the timeline, the 4:30 a.m. arrival. Certainly the folks who hold space down there were surprised by this. We heard from George Floyd's aunt, who's local, Angela Harrelson, saying she had no forewarning. If this was sort of a back and forth, did negotiations just finally break down and then this morning was sort of that magic moment and, on the precipice of a heat wave? Like, why this morning? Why 4:30? Can you just talk about logistically how all of this came together today?
Yeah, thank you. I'll let Mr. Floyd speak to this one.
Well, in our conversations and in our meetings, we negotiated that, talked about times when would be the best time to avoid a lot of the feedback or pushback that we would get. We had a number of dates decided, word get out and say things is going to happen here. And so we would basically look at the preview, see who showed up, how they showed up, and then we would know the next time. So then it basically became a point in time that we would contact the city works and we would set a date and say, hey, we're going to try to go in at this time. Like, again, going in and early in the morning prevented a lot of the things, and we was allowed to get things done. They were able to go in and do what they did in 4 hours, and obviously we didn't get to finish, but we had made that move.
And you mentioned didn't get to finish and just kind of following social media. We have crews down there. You guys remove some barricades and more barricades come in. I think gets to Esme's question about traffic. Do you expect just this sort of sloppy back and forth of in these coming days to
Well,
kind of
we
take
still
ground?
playing it by ear. We still out there talking. We still letting them emotions come down, because people were shocked, when they came in. We just letting it ride and do what we've always been doing out there, is to ease it in and then to make something happen easily with everybody being involved.
Mr.
And
Floyd?
also, we did have a plan that if it got too crazy and it was up to, we back off. We just leave it alone. And that's what we had to do when the gardener, who is passionate about his gardener, came out, and we didn't have a chance to talk to him. And that was one of the problems, that we hadn't had a chance to talk to him and let him know, hey, we can work together in doing this. They're not destroying anything. They're not taking away any plants. The dirt, everything we would keep. But he was caught off guard when he showed up. And it's a heck of a project. And we appreciate it. And we want it reserved and want it taken care of.
Mayor, could you talk about the
City funded? The only way that we are city funded is money that I assume that was taken from the police department and given to Minneapolis. And so we have patrolled and allowed to get a lot of young black men jobs and take them through training, because they have to go through training before they'll come through and work for Minneapolis. That money was provided, and that's an interesting thing that we see happening in the community, that they scream and holler about, and it's a lot, refund the police, abolish the police, but yet when they start doing certain things and then putting that money back in the community, they say we're working with the police now, simply because we got that money. And we understand that that's a lot of naiveness of understanding the works and how it happens, but it still gets out there, and it still puts us in a position that somebody who don't know or understand put us in danger for saying things like that. And none of us work with them. You don't get ex-gang members working for police.
We all are very well known people in the community. Even though I just that question came up, just what way is it city funded? And you said you've gotten pushback on that. Next question over there.
Mayor, could you talk about, there's an email going around from Public Works yesterday telling city workers what time to be there in the morning and that Agape was in charge. Talk to me about who was in charge this morning and who's in charge of the space going forward.
Well, I can't speak to the email you referenced. I haven't seen it, but what you see is a partnership. As Mr. Floyd mentioned, they came to us with a plan and a vision. Obviously, that plan and vision required assistance and help from a number of different departments throughout the city, whether that was Public Works and helping to remove the Jersey barriers that had been there for now almost a year, or regulatory services and undergoing their functions, or of course, assets of safety and security from the police. This has been a partnership. It's been an ongoing effort. As far as the date and time, a lot of that was sort of decided as the plan was taking shape, and again through the leadership of Mr. Floyd and Agape.
One more question, right here.
Yeah, just kind of a double here. So you and the other city council members were unaware of what was going to happen this morning?
No, we were aware.
Oh, you were aware?
Yes.
Okay. And also, Mr. Floyd, what's the plan going forward from here? Because you got the pushback. Is it to get that other 10% you say that are reticent about opening it up and talk to them and negotiate, or what's the plan moving forward?
Well, that's part of it. We're not going to change anything that we've been doing. It's about building those relationships. It's about making a statement. It's about the anniversary of Black Wall Street, when most of the businesses on that block are brown and black people. The building that's across the street from Cub Food, the apartment building, is we got African-American men buying and looking to purchase that building. So all up and down that block is black businesses. And basically through the shutdown, they were the ones being oppressed. They was oppressing, standing and protesting for oppression, but at the same time oppressing the community and the businesses.
I mean, what's the plan moving forward?
Plan moving forward, again, we're not going to stop. We're going to continue to be out there on that block. We're going to continue to have our face shown and our body shown and pretend to try to convince brothers that we're working with to come on, change your life. Let's do something positive in this community and take up on all the different skill sets that we have going on that we're developing in Agape.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.